Okay, so the next thing we're going to study is feature engineering, and this is by far the most difficult concept and in terms of practical applications. Whenever you're working in the industry, machine learning engineers spend hours and hours in feature engineering. So what is feature engineering? Feature engineering involves the study of features. So first things first, you need to study the features and you need to understand them first before you do any engineering. As for the engineering part, it involves combining, removing, or adding features. So after your study, you either decide to combine a couple of features, remove them, or add them. We have seen the combining and removing part before. We remove those features that are irrelevant by using the correlation matrix. We combine those features that have the same information, that have the same values by using that categorical visualization. And the adding part is something new. We haven't discussed it yet, but we did touch some of it in the pandas section when we were talking about adding columns and adding features. So now we're going to study it in much more detail. Engineering new features. So the first thing is combining. We have seen that many of the features can have the same values but different names, but since they're representing the same information, their presence can cause imbalancing, so they need to be combined together into one. After combining, we can get these new features and they will be the final features for that. Removing features are the features that will not impact your solution. For example, ID or names in the real estate prediction dataset. We've discussed this and we will see that by looking at the correlation matrix, we can actually identify them and remove them. Now let's talk about adding features. Firstly, there is a concept before we study anything else about adding features so in order to understand the adding features, we need to understand that there are many ways we can introduce features into our dataset. Introducing features is the same as replacing missing data values, because now, again, we are adding more information to our dataset. And with that, we can also introduce a human bias. So in order to prevent that, we need to make sure that we're not doing it. So the best option is that we create a new feature using the existing features or using dummy variables. And now in this lecture, we're going to see how we can do that. So first of all, let's talk about categorical column grouping. This is one of the ways we can add another feature. So you can see the table on the left side, we have the cities and the visit days. Now we have actually 3 users, but there's information is not well represented. So in order to do that, what we need to do is we're going to convert the city column into the city feature, and we're going to replace it with the city feature. So what we're going to do is we're going to group these columns into one single column. We're going to create a column of Madrid. We're going to create a column of Istanbul and Roma. And now what we need to do is we're going to present the number of days visited by each of the user. So user 1 visited Istanbul 3 times, visited 3 days, and user 2 visited Istanbul for 4 days. And now in this way, we have represented the information in a much more compact way. So this is what we call categorical column grouping. We have created the columns from the city column, and we have grouped them in a much more smart way so that we can present them in a much better way. So you can understand this is rather challenging and this is rather difficult, but with practice and with a lot of time and experience, you can do that quite easily. So, and the next way is to, let's say we create the new features with using the old ones. So let's imagine that you have number of schools and the median quality of education of that school. So let's suppose you have a number of schools in an area and the median quality feature, which represents which of the schools among them have better quality schools. Okay, so we have these 2 features. So in order to do that, if we want to create a new feature, so which can give us a better quantitative measure to compare them. So imagine if I had a score for each school rather than only giving me the median quality, which has not a perfect score to select between those 3 schools in that area. So what we need to do is we introduce a new feature, and we can do that by multiplying the median quality with the number of schools. Then we can get the score feature, and we can introduce this feature by adding another column in the dataset. So this way we have added a new feature using the existing ones from the previous ones. First, it's important to understand that the feature we have added has some meaningful information, has some meaningful presence and existence. So in this particular examples, we were looking for better quality schools. So we needed a quantitative measure to compare all the schools. So this way, when we multiply these values, we get another variable which can tell us which schools should we choose and how we do choose them. So another application of feature engineering and adding features is the adding dummy variables. So you remember when I mentioned that there were many features in a particular dataset that have text, or you can say categories in text. So mostly when you have text, they are identified as categorical features because there is no continuous nature in text. So whenever we have text in our dataset, we need to deal with it because machine learning algorithms only process numbers. So for that purpose, we introduced the concept of dummy variables. Dummy variables is assigning numbers to textual categories. As you can see in this example, we have assigned 0 and 1 to each of the classes in a particular column. So imagine if you have two types of classes in one categorical feature in the form of text, you assign each of the class as 0 and 1. So in the remaining of the 8 classes, you will assign them, and if you only have one class, then you will only assign them with 0, and that is only your choice. So that's how we deal with textual information, textual category information in a dataset.